Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. Illumination Entertainment have a pretty mixed reputation as a company. Their films have been criticised for being shallow slop that panders to kids and never take risks, but there's no denying that there's a market for what they make, and audiences keep coming back for more. In this video, I'm going to be counting down my picks for the top 5 best and worst Illumination movies. Yes, this was going to be one of my Patreon goals, but then Patreon deleted their goals tab, so I announced that I'd be dropping my Patreon goals, thus giving me the freedom to make this video whenever I wanted, and I chose today! The Secret Life of Pets 2. This sequel is about a stressed Max dealing with being an overprotective dog to his owner's baby, Snowball becoming a superhero to rescue a poached tiger from a circus villain, and Gidget training to become a feline to retrieve Max's favourite toy from a cat lady's house. As you might have obviously noticed, this is yet another Illumination film with way too many plots, except this one has the most random bunch of plots out of them all. Trust me, I've tried to work out what links these all together, but it takes a lot of mental gymnastics to tie them all, and said string is dang thin and flimsy. Out of all 3 plots, only one has the hero going on any kind of journey. Max goes from being unhealthily overprotective to being brave enough to handle guardianship without panicking, but all the other characters have arcs that don't really go anywhere. Snowball is under the delusion that he's a real superhero.
You do know that your owner is just playing superhero, right? You're just wearing some superhero pajamas.
Ha! Tiny dog, you so naive.
And his superhero experience never really ends up humbling him, while Gidget learns to become a cat in a day, and then that's it. These disconnected plots do eventually become relevant to each other in the finale, but it's a showdown that's emotionally dry, because Gidget and Max have only just met this tiger, plus have had nothing to do with this villain until the climax. Owen the baddie himself, well, he's yet another letdown. Yes, his sick design is a gothic and fashionable look that screams sinister, but he's just a generic antagonist in gold gloves.
We try again tomorrow. If Tiger does not do trick, Tiger will become rug.
With one of the most anticlimactic villain defeats I've ever seen.
It ends here and now.
On top of all of this, I was not a fan of Max's mentor in the film, a gruff and serious farm dog called Rooster. I get that Max might need an old-fashioned badass to bring out his brave side, and I will admit that Rooster can be right about Max's overcoddling.
Don't freak out my kid.
Take that, Mr. Wolfie.
Kid seems fine to me.
But the sheepdog's outdated teachings are a tad problematic, and he does kind of just become the other extreme end of the sensitivity spectrum, where he's advising Max to ignore his therapist.
My therapist says I need it.
Oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a medical device. These doctors...
Or encouraging the Jack Russell to mask his fear altogether.
The first step of not being afraid is acting like you're not afraid.
Even though other characters in the film have shown that you can be openly scared and still brave at the same time. This sequel just needed to narrow its 3 plots down to 2. The film could have been about Max being scared and nervous over the daunting upcoming task of protecting a baby, but when he helps Snowball rescue a tiger, Max comes to learn that he is capable of helping raise a living thing and protect it from danger, which would then make looking after a baby seem less scary in the end. The Grinch. The Who's of Whoville are huge fans of Christmas, but up on Mount Crumpet lives the Grinch, who despises all things festive. Fed up of the season, Grinchy resorts to stealing Christmas from the Who's. This is a very sterilised, safe and corporate take on Dr. Seuss's seasonal classic, a Grinch adaptation that's so inoffensive that it's just plain boring. For starters, this Grinch is less of a mean, chaotic villain, and more of a rude neighbour who causes minor inconveniences. His character animation is also stifled by a reluctance to make him look twisted, as if ugly expressions are outside Illumination's comfort zone. Even Benedict Cumberbatch fails to give this Grinch's voice any grit, playing him as a posh snob who gets miffed at most.
You know what? If you want to apologize for something, apologize for that. My eyes are burning.
Even when the Grinch comes close to doing a big prank on the Who's, the movie cowardly backs out of the stunt seconds later. It's like Illumination were terrified of making the Grinch genuinely mean. You know, the whole point of his character?
Well, then why send a letter? I mean, if it's really that important, you should just ask him face to face. Oh, but that's right. No one's ever seen him.
This take on the Grinch also adds a sob story to our Green Grump to explain his Christmas grudge, but it's just a stock lonely childhood flashback that's awkwardly slapped into the film, with Illumination desperately hoping that the bare minimum is enough to manipulate audience pity.
That lost lonely boy, isolated and sad, with no home of his own.
The Who's in this film were also way too nice. They accept the Grinch as he is, and are timid when it comes to complaining about his grumpiness. Look, I get that the film wants to imply that the Grinch's anti-Christmas problem is self-inflicted, but this direction just makes the Who so unrealistically perfect and calm that they unintentionally come off as creepily cultish.
Hello, Mr. Grinch. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too.
Now yes, the film tries to look Seussian, but it's a very diluted and soulless version of Ted Geisel's universe. The quirkiness is being dialed down very dramatically, and the Grinch basically lives in a normal middle-class house that happens to be inside a cave.
Where's my personal reserve of moose juice? And goose juice? My emergency stash of Who hash?
Seuss's original story is also pretty short, and so the film resorts to unnecessary padding to fill out the runtime. We didn't need to see the Grinch picking out a reindeer, stealing a sleigh, or rehearsing in detail, but that's how desperate Illumination get.
Intel, Max, that's what we're after. How many houses are in Whoville and how many Whos? How many reeds and trees and chimney flues?
So how could have this film been better? Well, lo and behold, there already exists a beloved animated adaptation. Chuck Jones's 1966 TV special is a concise 20-minute short with colourfully surreal designs, crisp animation that isn't afraid to be rubbery or grotesque.
The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea.
Oh, and having the Who's be loud, annoying and gluttonous not only helped give them actual personalities, but also makes for a good enough motivation for the Grinch's Christmas heist. It didn't need to be any deeper than that. When you watch the 60s special, you can better appreciate when an adaptation is done well, and understand why Illumination's attempt is so hollow. Despicable Me 3, after Gru and Lucy failed to capture the villain Balthazar Brad yet again, they're fired from their jobs. Then, Gru learns that he has a long-lost twin brother called Drew, a wealthy and successful man who wants to carry on the family legacy of villainy, but needs Gru's expertise. So Gru tricks Drew into helping him heist a stolen diamond from Brad in order to get his job back. Every Despicable Me sequel follows the same formula of Gru taking on a mission, and his girls going off to do their own thing, all while the villain plots their newest scheme until it's time for them to face Gru in a showdown in the finale. However, 3 stands out because it handles the formula the worst. From the extremely low stakes of Agnes trapping a unicorn that doesn't exist, to the minions basically being in their own separate prison escape film. At least Despicable Me 2 made the minions into an integral part of the villain's scheme, and 4 had them all working for Gru's agency. But their involvement with 3 is paper thin. We also have Lucy being so inept as a new mother that she unfairly relies on her eldest daughter Margot to teach her parenting.
It's okay to tell them no, sometimes too, you know? Moms need to be tough. Right, tough.
Only to then nag an uncomfortable Margot into doing a nice gesture for a boy that lands her in an engagement. Lucy does end up protecting Margot from the boy's angry mum, but Lucy's mistake wasn't failing to defend her kids. It was making Margot do something she didn't want to while ignoring her feelings, thus leading to a plot with a rushed happy ending that completely moves the goalpost for what Lucy was meant to learn. To be honest though, Despicable Me 3's crowning failure goes to the character of Drew. Yes, Gru's obnoxious twin brother is what mainly tanks this film the most. A juvenile, loud and whiny trust fund baby who insufferably sounds like a high-pitched and hyperactive version of Gru.
Brother,
Sure, Gru is wrong for tricking his brother in the film, but it's hard for me to resent Gru or feel sorry for Drew like he's an innocent puppy when the idiot Drew spent the entire heist being an easily distracted child and kept getting in the dang way.
You did nothing but screw up the whole time. I got this in spite of you.
I'm glad that Drew later apologizes to Gru, but then the film conveniently changes Drew's whole character into this competent and brave man, just so the movie can be like, see folks, Drew is actually a good hero. Gru should have really appreciated him.
Give me a break.
To improve this film, I would have made Drew into Balthazar's minion. Drew and Brad not only already match in energy, but it also would have been fun to see our villain being constantly tormented by his own henchmen. Plus, this dynamic would have made things interestingly tense for our heroes versus villains confrontations. Heck, the film's end credits actually teases such a rivalry, and this whole sequence honestly proves that Drew really would have been better as an antagonist. Hop. E.B. is very passionate about drumming, but his strict father keeps insisting that his son inherits the job of the Easter Bunny. Sick of the pressure, E.B. runs away to America, where he befriends Fred O'Hare. E.B. makes Fred's already struggling life a nightmare at first, but O'Hare soon realizes that he could be the next Easter Bunny instead of E.B. There is a decent concept behind this film, but sadly, Illumination decided to give us a stinky, rotten egg instead of a delicious chocolate one. I've honestly grown to despise Hop more and more on every viewing. To begin with, it's an incredibly mean-spirited movie. I get that E.B. is meant to be a mirror to Fred's own slacker lifestyle, and someone to make Fred realize that he needs to change, but the thing is that E.B. stormed into Fred's life just when he's about to improve it, and has already had a pep talk from his sister. What's the point of giving Fred a taste of his own medicine, when the guy is now putting his all into embracing responsibilities and pursuing an interview for his dream job? Fred is finally getting his act together, yet we're meant to find it hilarious and satisfying to see an annoying bunny burn his chances.
Fred, I'm gonna kill you so bad. Get out.
Okay.
E.B. is, quite frankly, one of the worst Illumination characters ever created. A selfish and manipulative bugger who feels entitled to do whatever he wants, even if it's at the cost of other people's feelings, time, or dreams. I understand that he's having to constantly avoid his dad's pink berets, but that excuse can only defend so much. His cruelest moment being when he sabotages a children's play, or while bullying a kid singing and dragging Fred into playing along, who only joins E.B.'s stunt to avoid public panic, even though every character he's met so far has accepted a talking rabbit.
Can I get some chocolate syrup?
Sure, doll.
Yes, E.B. does later self-reflect, but it's a painfully rushed redemption that comes off as way too disingenuous, especially when Russell Brand only knows how to sound sarcastic as a voice actor.
I'm starting to realize I might be a really selfish rabbit.
The only reason why I've not ranked Hop at number 1 is because it's at least got a good villain. Carlos the evil chick, a rather fun antagonist who is somehow the most sympathetic character in the film.
Enjoy your life of privilege, little bunny.
The simplest way to improve this movie would be to cut out E.B. altogether. Instead, the film should have been about Fred being a couch potato over Easter, only to end up nursing a wounded Easter rabbit. This situation would not only force Fred to be responsible for the first time, but also make the Easter Bunny gradually accept that he's now too old for his job, thus leading to Fred becoming his new apprentice while he recovers. The Lorax? Teenage boy Ted has a crush on a girl called Audrey who really wants to see a tree, but that's impossible in the town of Thneedville, where trees are now extinct and their jobs have been replaced by commercialized air. So Teddy consults the mysterious Onceler on how to get hold of a real tree, only to learn the story of how the Onceler destroyed all the trees and betrayed the forest guardian, the Lorax. Illumination's The Lorax is very guilty of pandering to kids. For example, the movie gives the Onceler the Poochie treatment by handing him an electric guitar and an emo punk makeover, which is made worse by how his hero to villain arc is clumsily rushed, as he goes from questioning his morals 1 second to suddenly singing a villain musical number right out of nowhere. Plus, Illumination's idea for updating the Lorax seems to be just make him edgier, so we end up with a rude and aggressive version of a peaceful forest spirit who relies on dated insult humor to be funny.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! You wouldn't hit a woman.
That's a woman?
He's so obnoxious and entitled that I would say that he does his environmental cause a disservice.
Why do you have one of these? You don't even have a mustache.
I have nothing at all against a film having an environmental message. Heck, I think we should teach kids to look after the earth. However, this film handles the topic very immaturely because it has zero trust in children's intelligence and feels the need to insultingly spell out its points.
When we build a new factory to make the plastic bottles, the air quality's just going to get worse. Which will make people want our air even more and drive sales, where? Through the roof!
Heck, this adaptation's villain is basically a straw man for the movie's discourse. A cartoony caricature that's designed to be useless at debating, with our heroes being the only ones allowed to give strong arguments, which just makes for boring debates that lack tension because our heroes aren't being fairly challenged.
I just thought, they make leaves. You know that, right? And these leaves, they just fall. They just fall wherever they want.
Another annoying thing is how the film's wraparound story is one of the blandest animated romances I've ever seen. A shallow infatuation that's built entirely on Audrey's weird thing for boys who can find her trees.
The last truffula seed, and you're gonna help me plant it right in the middle of town where everyone can see it.
I could just kiss you right now.
I hate to sound like a broken record, but there's already a great animated adaptation of this Dr. Seuss story. An animated special that isn't afraid to let its villain make interesting points and debates.
Well, what do you want? I should shut down my factory? Fire 100,000 workers? Is that good economics?
Has faith in kids' ability to understand capitalist satire, and gives us an ambiguous ending that lets children think about what... Right, now it's time for my best list, folks. Minions. In this prequel to the Despicable Me franchise, the Minions try to become servants to the infamous villainess Scarlet Overkill by agreeing to help her steal the crown of England. But our yellow heroes end up becoming royalty themselves instead. The Minions movie mainly exists as an excuse to cash in on the cultural phenomenon of these Tic Tacs and dungarees. But despite this very commercial motivation, I'd say that it's a good little spin-off. I actually found it to be one of Illumination's funniest films.
Alrighty, who needs to stretch their legs?
Yeah! You guys wait here, we'll be right back.
The movie knows what style of humour it wants to go for, and it has no shame in being as childish as it wants. It gets what makes kids giggle, but it's happy to be in on these silly jokes with them.
Gentlemen, do not steal ladies' crowns!
Making every minion into the star would have been madness, but Illumination wisely narrowed them down to just 3. Kevin the leader, Stuart the chill guitarist, and the adorable Bob. Not only do this trio have distinct personalities from each other, but the movie also embraces an endearing sibling hierarchy for the 3.
I hope you find what you're looking for.
Happy Kevin!
A brotherly bond that's made even more meaningful by how Kevin is already taking on the role of leading his tribe into better times. That's the thing, the core of this movie is the tale of a depressed community that are desperate to find a villain to lead them, which is a tricky mission when minions are naturally immature and unfocused, plus Kevin, Stuart and Bob have ambitiously chosen the best of the best in villainy. A villainess that isn't just very hard to please, but also willing to execute any henchmen who fail her.
So the wolf huffed and puffed and she blew them off the face of the earth!
Scarlet herself is a stylish and fabulous monster who has a toddler-like entitlement and genuinely feels that the world owes her royalty. It's like she's not grown up since she was 5, and now her tantrums spell disaster because she's an adult in legit power. I mean, she can afford to arm her coronation dress with extreme weapons.
Oh no you don't.
And her infamy in the villain community grants her the freedom to command over the world's worst criminals.
Villains! This is no longer a coronation! It is an execution! Get them!
After all the groveling for a mistress though, our heroes come to realise that while they will always want to work for a baddie, they also learn that they're fully capable of doing amazing feats on their own, and can even outwit the #1 villainess by themselves.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to celebrate the Millions!
The Secret Life of Pets. Max is a happy Jack Russell who adores his kind owner Katie, but his life is turned upside down once Katie adopts a huge pooch called Duke. These brothers struggle to get along, and their rivalry leads them to getting caught by the pound, only for the duo to be rescued by a community of human-hating abandoned sewer pets, led by the crazed Snowball. I'm not going to overhype this film as anything special. I mean, it's very much Toy Story with pets. However, for Illumination standards, this is a decent flick that I do find myself enjoying. When a studio usually makes overcooked or undercooked slop, an adequate filmmaking effort suddenly seems praiseworthy. I'd say that the best thing about Secret Life is how accurate it is at capturing the mannerisms and traits of its critter characters. You can really tell that Illumination's artists took real-life inspiration from their own pets, or perhaps studied up on animal behaviour, because the film totally gets how dogs, cats and birds tick.
Ball!
There's also this delightful charm to how the film really does feel like an eye into an exciting version of what pets get up to once alone. I can imagine kids loving the secretiveness of this animal community, and how all these pets have fun without the restraints of domestic rules. I wouldn't say that's all the film has to offer though. It's not a hollow movie with nothing to say. This is very much a film about learning to trust folks and being open to accepting new loved ones. Whether we're talking about Max and Duke putting aside their insecurities to become closer brothers.
You know, when I met you, I was all like, I don't know if I like him. But now that I know you, I'm like, I like him.
or Snowball overcoming his vengeful hate against humans to let himself be loved again.
What's going on? What's she doing?
Bunny, I'm gonna love you forever and ever and ever.
With both of these plots acting as helpful fables for any kids who have just gotten a new sibling or anxious about joining another family. It's a well-meaning theme that's strengthened by the fact that Katie is a terrific role model for pet owners everywhere, as well as the perfect antidote against Snowball's cynical pessimism regarding humanity, a soft-spoken and gentle-hearted woman who frequently leaps at chances to adopt abandoned or stray dogs, all while being calmly understanding about their psychology.
So maybe a few bumps. But I knew this was gonna work out.
So yeah, while this film is not exactly any kind of masterpiece, it's certainly made with more love than the usual Illumination project, which is why I'm happy to put it in the studio's Hall of Fame. The Super Mario Bros. Movie. When brother plumbers Mario and Luigi accidentally end up traveling to another world, they find themselves split up from each other and caught in a war between Princess Peach and a lovesick Bowser. So, Mario joins forces with Peach to defeat the evil turtle and rescue his brother. Now, I will admit that this film goes at a very hyperactive pace. Spectacle and action are the focus, as we hop from one Mario game-inspired set piece to another, while quiet breaks are rare and character development is rushed. However, it's hard for me to get that mad at this problem when the film is so dang fun. What it lacks in depth, it makes up for in its sheer passion for its source material, which is a big deal when video game movies tend to cut budgets or take too many creative liberties. Illumination gives us an adaptation that shows a genuine love for the Mario games, with the studio pouring themselves into capturing the vibe, aesthetics, and dynamics of the beloved Nintendo franchise.
Hey, what does this do?
The heart of the film comes from the wholesome and earnest bond between the Mario brothers themselves, the two sharing a sibling camaraderie that's unapologetic in its take on masculine love and affection. Their solid kinship being strong enough to invest us in seeing the brothers reuniting eventually and kicking Bowser's butt together. Speaking of our villain, Bowser has been heavily praised for stealing the movie, and I can totally understand why he's a fan favourite, as the film hits that perfect villain sweet spot of effectively intimidating and endearingly charismatic.
Not sure if you know who I am, but I'm about to marry a princess and rule the world.
Wow,
He's a brutish tyrant that just so happens to have the dorkiest crush ever.
I stole this star for us. I guess love really makes a guy come out of his shell.
Some folks have complained about Princess Peach's modernized portrayal, but I'm 100% down for a Peach that isn't just an outdated woman under hostage trope, actually acts like a royal leader, plus realistically showcases the survival skills of someone who has lived in this fantasy world since she was a child. When it was first announced that Illumination will be adapting Mario, many were apprehensive, but the studio ended up delivering a tasty popcorn movie. The crayon scribbles a charming love letter to Mario's legacy. Migration. Mac is a very overbearing dad who refuses to let his family leave the pond that they've always lived in, but an existential dread changes his mind and he takes his flock on a flight to Jamaica. As an adventure flick, Migration is not only full of immersive flying sequences that range from beautiful countryside backdrops to atmospheric cityscapes, but the whole journey is also rich with surprises. This never feels like a generic point A to point B trip, because each pit stop is full of twists and turns. I actually loved whenever Mac's vlog took a rest, because I could never predict what each layover would bring. Oh, and all of these obstacles that we face happen to be puppeteered by an imposing and silent villain chef who is feared by both birds and humans, plus fully commits to a predatory tiger motif. None of these breaks feel like they halt the story too, because our heroes need to rescue birds at each stop, and these missions bring out Mac's repressed courageous side.
I'm not that brave.
What? You knew the danger? You did it anyway! What do you call that?
It's also awesome how the film challenges Mac's preconceptions about the dangers of the world, but also fairly validates some of his fears too. It's a good balance of both. Mac may be overprotective, but he's not crazy. I do also like how, even though Mac is getting braver after each obstacle, he's not suddenly changed as a parent. Because while he does now have courage in himself, he fails to share that confidence in his son, Dax, even though Dax himself keeps showing that he's just as much of a hero.
Everyone, get off the truck unless you want to be cooked!
Cooked?
Mac's helicopter parenting doesn't make him a better dad, it just pushes the father and son apart. Because Mac's lack of faith in Dax makes the boy feel underestimated.
I don't need your help, Dax. I need you to do what I say. Do you understand?
Only for the dad to be humbled greatly when he's eventually rescued by the very children that he's been bubble wrapping. Although I do wish that Mac apologized to his son for how he acted. One more thing that I appreciated about Migration was the unique relationship between Mac and his partner Pam. It's so refreshing that Pam isn't the nagging stick in the mud wife cliche, but rather the far more confident and bubbly one of the two.
I told you to stay back there.
Oh, there's no way I'm letting you have all the fun. Let's go.
Oh, and Mac never gets annoyingly insecure about his wife's commanding personality. Heck, he adores her fierceness.
I didn't know you could be so tough.
Really, Mac?
You didn't know that?
Oh, no, Oh! I get it.
While these two might seem like an unlikely couple, it's very much opposites attract. Plus our road trip brings them closer, and they get to inspire each other.
You're the adventurous one, the brave one. You never give up on anything. You haven't even given up on me.
I'll say it, folks. This is an Illumination movie that I'd actually call underrated. Shame on the marketing team for underselling it with rubbish trailers.
Thank you.
For what?
Opening my eyes.
Despicable Me. Gru is a mean villain who desperately needs to steal a shrink ray from his rival Vector, but Vector's home is heavily guarded by advanced technology, so Gru adopts 3 orphan girls called Margot, Agnes and Edith, then uses them to infiltrate Vector's lair. Gru can now commit to his new villain scheme, but fatherhood keeps distracting him. Before Despicable Me became a formulaic and predictable franchise, we had the original movie from 2010, a film that embraced the charm of simplicity and knew what it wanted to be about. Sure, there are better parenting movies out there, and you can easily criticize Gru's fathering in this film. However, when we learn how Gru was raised, it's easy to see why he's a flawed father with much to learn.
Someday I'm going to go to the moon.
Oh, I'm afraid you're too late, son. NASA isn't sending the monkeys anymore.
At the same time, the appeal of Despicable Me is seeing the sinister villain's transition from grumpy grouch to a softie in a scarf, as we get to see the hard-nosed cynic's walls being broken down by these quirky kids who crave parental love.
Now make them drink the milk.
Oh, I don't like this book.
All while he juggles the emotional conflict of choosing between chasing his villain dreams and the opportunity to parent the girls that he loves, something that comes easier to him when the film gives us a powerful visual comparison between his wants and needs.
I can make it.
Out of every Despicable Me movie, this one uses the minions the best. It was their first ever appearance before the little yellow guys became a merch empire, so there's a modesty to their part in the film. They get a liberal amount of screen time and add what they need to as comic relief sidekicks.
It was your cousin's idea. What?
The tasty syrup that's poured onto this movie's fun bowl of ice cream is how we have yet another fantastic Despicable Me villain. Vector is a nerdy antagonist who is the perfect foe for Gru at this point in his life. While Gru is getting older as a super criminal and is far from financially successful, Vector is a young new villain who is full of energy and unfairly backed by wealthy privilege, thus inspiring a solid on-screen rivalry that becomes even more dramatically personal in the finale.
He punched my shark!
You can tell that this is Illumination's first ever film, but its humble origins are what make it special. It's an endearingly simple kids film with a lot of heart, made before the studio became the profit giant that it is today.
I love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
Next, check out my other top 5 best and worst videos. There's lots to choose from. Cheerio, folks.